Express FM.
You're listening to Terry in the Afternoon on 93.7 Express FM.
And my final guest today is Phil Stoker. Welcome, Phil.
Good afternoon, how are you doing?
Very well, mate. You doing all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slightly taken aback by just the similarities.
Yes,
we were just having a chat before you came on air.
We've been sort of discussing your situation, which you had to have operations and chemotherapy about a year ago now, was it?
Yeah, it started out, I found out in February last year that I had testicular cancer.
Yeah.
Went through the NHS and obviously got checked out, and they gave you an ultrasound, and then they go and do blood tests and so on and so forth. Become a bit of a pincushion for a while. And then it came out that I had a malignant tumour, what was stage 1 malignant tumour on my left side. Wow. Had that removed in March, and then subsequently had to have more surgery in November because they decided that there was a risk of it spreading, therefore they were going to remove the other one on the other side. And yeah, in sort of debriefing at the beginning, I found out you had something similar a few years ago yourself. So.
Yeah, that's right. I did, and I had one removed. But with your story, how did you actually find out yourself?
I was singing a rock band. A band called Synthetics, and the guitarist...
Which you're still in, of course.
I am indeed, yeah. We're still going quite happily at the moment, about a year and a half now.
Yeah.
And the guitarist, a guy called Matt, who I'm sure will be listening to this because he's got a day off today, managed to let slip, sat around a pub table, that he was a bit of a manscaper. He trimmed a particular part of his body, the hair there, and I walked away with it thinking, yeah, okay, fair enough, this is a strange thing to sort of discuss around even with your mates, you know, even if you are good friends. And,
having a pint across the bar.
Yeah, you walk away and you think, shall I try it? You know, you just want to try it just that once. So I did, and whilst doing that, I actually found a lump on the left testicle. And
right.
I've actually gone on record as saying I think it probably would have meant that I wouldn't be around now if I hadn't have been lucky enough to actually check and find it then. I wasn't a regular checker, shall we say. It wasn't something that I was particularly familiar with. And I didn't fear it in the slightest. So you know, it wasn't on my radar in the slightest. So when I found out, it was all a bit of a shock.
Yeah. So where did it go from there then? Once you realised what did you do? I
ignored it for 2 weeks.
Right.
Which I think is the staple diet of any man who, you know, buries his head in sand, ostrich style.
Probably.
And then I was about to go out for a friend's birthday on a Saturday night, and completely disassociated with it, I had a urine infection, and I didn't realise this at the time, but it caused swelling, and I got into an awful lot of discomfort, and so I ended up cancelling my night out and phoning home to speak to my parents, because I was just like, this is getting serious, I've got a lump, I'm now swollen, what's going on? And they said, well, phone doctors, phone hospitals, whatever. Got an appointment via the NHS direct service that was still running back then, to go to QA, obviously here in Portsmouth, for an emergency check-up on the Sunday, and ended up with a testicular specialist who was actually was covering as a GP on the Sunday, and he took one feel and said, yeah, I'd pretty much say that you need to get an ultrasound and you need it like tomorrow. So did that. And it's weird, I haven't talked about this in so long now because I've written about it, but I haven't actually discussed this story in ages. The guy who did the ultrasound was having a bit of a bad day. He'd managed to link the lady previously and the man subsequent to that. He'd linked their ultrasounds together, so he sent 3 pictures of a lady's womb and 2 of a man's testicles off to one GP, and the other GP got 3 wombs and 2 testicles. So it was and I kind of ended up sat on the table with my trousers around my ankles, covering my private area, waiting while a technician tried to fix the system in front of him.
Right.
But then, yeah, he kind of got a bit businesslike and sat down with me and said, look, you know, this is going to be... I'd prefer to have what you've got in diabetes, were his words to me. And I gathered from speaking to my friend John Willis, who is the guy who runs Kick It Into Touch, which is a charity I work with. Yeah. He said exactly the same thing to John when John found out. So clearly a bit of a practiced sort of routine that the guy does. But that was how it all kind of transpired. And then you just really take it on board, and I think it affects family worse than it affects you after that, because you just kind of get on with it and everyone else is around you, wondering if you're actually telling them how you're really feeling.
That's right. So how soon was it before you were dealt with and you had your...
I had a bit of a run-in with QA, unfortunately, while in the build-up to the first surgery. I got there on the... They give you day surgery these days, so you go into the I was called at 7 o'clock in the morning.
That's right.
I went about 10 days later from when I was diagnosed. I was in hospital at 7 in the morning. I had a checklist that they'd given me of all the things that were going to happen, and one that was missing off it was fertility. And so they'd done everything else, but they hadn't made any provision for fertility whatsoever. And because of the fact that I was due to have the left side out, and I knew that from childhood I'd had problems with the right being damaged, I knew that the only chance I had to have kids was in the left side.
Right.
So I had to sit down with, I had a dog tag around my, my wrist, with the old sort of medical number on it. They'd drawn on my leg on my left side. I was in a gown, I was sat in a chair, and a registrar came over to me and I said, look, I'm not doing anything, I'm not signing a consent form until such times as you give me some indication as to what you're doing about fertility. And I thought I'd just have to kind of wander up the stairs to the fertility clinic. Well, it turns out the nearest one is Southampton.
Oh, right.
So that was me an hour later walking back out of the hospital, having psyched myself up for the surgery, and it kind of, it all changed direction, and it ended up being another 10 days, 2 weeks after that. So it was into sort of early March time, having been diagnosed in late January, early February, that I actually got operated on. It went extremely well. The scar is almost gone now, and that's a year ago pretty much.
That's right.
And then subsequently I had to have chemotherapy, one dose of something called, carboplatin, which is, it feels like you basically have got a chronic hangover for about a week afterwards. So,
I can imagine that,
but that was the sort of the setup of that. And then November they decided they wanted to do a biopsy on the other side, and I felt that was a little bit like trying to land on the moon and find something on the moon. If you feel fantastic, and I just want to kind of raise awareness, and through Kick It Into Touch and through everything that John has previously done, John Willis, and what I plan to do with him and everything else going forwards, just want to get more people basically checking their nuts, which is why I brought you some nuts in.
Yeah, that's it. And with that, we hear with you. Did they replace?
Yes, I had.
I was trying to get around to that.
It's a subject that if you're not entirely 100% comfortable discussing can be quite funny trying to think of the words.
I must admit with myself, I'm comfortable to talk about it, but it's actually your story today. And
that's all right. Do you know what? It's actually, like I say, you're only the fourth person I've met in a year that's actually that's experienced the same thing. So, albeit maybe 15 years apart.
So we men out there, we must check ourselves,
correct,
and on a regular basis as well.
You're looking for anything that scares you, that feels abnormal. It's not a case of keeping an eye on it. If there is something there, then go straight to a doctor's. Tell him what is there, and 9 times out of 10 you'll probably get told that you've felt the end of a tube that's attached to each of your testicles, which is obviously feeds off and goes back into the body. That could be what you're feeling. But if you haven't found that and you found something else, then it's important to get it checked.
Yeah, it's a swelling, isn't it? We've got Phil Stoker in here. We're talking about testicular cancer. I nearly got round. I've been eating peanuts, actually, because it reminds, check your nuts out there, you men, because we want healthy men, and if you have a problem, then you need to get it dealt with. So, but with myself, I didn't actually carry it on, but you did. Phil, you've carried it on to actually bring awareness.
Sure.
And you've linked up with John Wills, you said?
Willis, yeah.
John Willis?
It started out as a blog for me. So when I found out I was ill, there was a period of about 2 months while I was off work. And during that time, I needed to kind of vent somehow. And so I started a blog. It kind of became a bit of humour as well involved in it, because I kept seeing funny things everywhere I went. I almost ended up having the ultrasound that I performed by an old housemate of mine at university, and she and I didn't get on very well, so I wasn't really looking forward to it. And I just started finding these sort of bits of comedy and bits of humour and things. So the blog kind of started because of the joys of social networking and social media these days, started feeding off, and a mutual friend of John's and mine put us in touch. And since then, we've been sort of, like I say, we're trying to organise things. It's difficult to coordinate everything at once and pull everything in the same direction, but I think Kick It Into Touch is a fantastic initiative. We have got provisionally agreement with the LMA, the League Managers Association, Chairman Richard Bevan, to actually go around and see all of the Premier League clubs within the UK's youth teams.
Right, yes.
That will be to raise awareness. That's purely and simply. It's not really we're not about raising oodles of cash for this particular disease, because while it will always need money for new machinery and new everything else, a lot of the technological developments that have gone on mean that you've pretty much, if you find it for early, you've got a 99% chance of survival. You and I are testament to the fact that that works. We're sat here.
That's right, yeah.
So, you know, that's a pretty much 100% success rate for the room, if nothing else.
Certainly is, yeah.
So, in that respect, what John, I know, wants to achieve is he uses a few celebrity links he uses a few connections he's got with Portsmouth Football Club and so on and so forth. You know, may it long last.
Yes.
Obviously not a nice subject, but you know, it's with all of the links that are involved in that, to basically get people together, do golfing events, do other events, just purely and simply to raise awareness.
That's right.
And again, social media, Twitter, that sort of stuff, just going off and talking to people that way. So he runs a good campaign, and I'm, you know, latterly involved in it. And my blog it's difficult to continue a blog when you're fully healthy. And to that end, I've struggled a wee bit with knowing quite what to write the last few months, because I ran out of things that are happening after the point in which I was given the all clear in February.
Right.
So the blog has kind of parked itself for the moment. There's a small update on there to say I'm on here today.
Yeah.
It is an intention of mine to revive it and bring it back to the fore, but there's so much stuff going on with the band I'm in and all that sort of stuff at the moment.
That's right. Yeah, the band.
Yeah, it's just.
I'll let you say the name.
It's testicular cancer and xanthetics, two words that are particularly difficult to pronounce. So I'm making your afternoon challenging. I apologise.
That's right.
The band are involved in Live and Unsigned, which is a national competition, basically. My phone has just gone off. I do apologise.
Buzzing off on the desk. That's no problem.
I shall silence that. And
this is all happening on the 22nd of April, is it?
22nd of April at Highlight down in Gunwolf Keys, and it's a strange setup. It's 50 bands in one day performing, a very short performance, and then the winners, or those that progress at that stage, will go through to play at the Guildhall, and then beyond the Guildhall off to the O2 Arena in London. So it's
What's
something.
What's your style about music?
It's kind of, I guess, if you took Led Zeppelin from that sort of era and gave it a modern day twist.
Right.
So a progressive rock band.
Sort of progressive rock.
Slightly sort of heavier than something you'd play on this radio station of an afternoon. Hence why I'm not force-feeding you a CD right as we speak.
we champion that we play all style of music.
I totally respect that. To be completely honest, we're in the sort of the throes of finalising some recordings and finalising releases.
Send it in.
And we'll definitely do that now that I know that you're interested.
Yeah.
We've got Closet Zeppelin fans at Express FM, guys.
That's right. Yeah.
But no, it's with I'm trying to make charity and band initiatives kind of coexist.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm enjoying at the moment in terms of that project with Xanthetics is turning into something really, really exciting.
That's brilliant.
And it just kind of takes precedence for me over you know, you've got to constantly weigh up where you're going to divert the 24 hours that are available in each day.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I tend to get maybe 6 of those to sleep, so the others have got, the other 18 are running around and doing a day job as well. So.
Yeah. Well, I want to congratulate you, Phil, for actually coming in and sharing
Thank you very much.
About this, because obviously sometimes it's a subject that people don't particularly want to talk about. I couldn't sort of say, well, for me personally to spell it out, but you brought it in, you brought it to awareness, and thank you very much indeed.
No problem at all.
And all the very best in the open mic with the band.
Live and Unsigned.
Live and Unsigned with the band.
I hope to progress. We can progress a long way beyond that. But if I can just ask everyone to jump on Facebook and go to Kick It Into Touch and have a look at what they're doing on there. You can find me on there as well, or go to philstoker.com/blog, and you can find a link that way as well.
Yeah, brilliant.
They've only got one link left. I suppose I should really do that one as well, which is xanthetics.com.
That's
the band, and that's all of my plugging done in one day. Thank you very
Wonderful.
much.
Well, there you
it.
go. Always welcome. Always an open door here. And you men out there, there's nothing wrong in having a feel and making sure you're all right.
Completely.
And
if you don't want to, get
ladies
to do
as well, check them out.
Thanks.
So there you go. Take care, mate.
Cheers.
All the best to you, Phil. Bye for now. Thank you.